Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my shop. Welcome to my channel. My name's Keith and I'm your host. Come on in. Let's see what our next video is all about. Okay, before we get moving on with the past of Buffy's back, part 8, I want to share a couple things with you. And also, after the clip, I wanted to hit some highlights of the landlord doing the driveway work out in front of the shop there during this last season. So let's move over to the in and out bench, and I got something quick to show you. Okay, in the last week or so I've picked up some new items here, and these are all chi products. That's what I'm gonna call them now, just chi. You don't have to say China. So anyhow, nothing's wrong with these two pieces here, but this casting system, because I want to get in, I want to do investments in casting, just like I had told you. With Stan's oven is going to be a helpful hand in things. Also, I got this furnace here. This is just a wax melter here. So anyway, I got this piece, and the crate had no damage on the outside. But there was some damage that looked like it can only be made before it was in the crate. And there was the motor broke loose, and there was a broken filter in there. And when I took off the cover, I found that the wiring was just twisted, and a little piece of black tape over the ground, and some other things. So I completely, just like every other chi product I get, 99.9% of the time I have to either fix or replace something on it. The table was completely broke loose, and I went and I got nylock nuts and things like that. This thing makes vibration. You got to have certain things. At least in my head, it had to be. All right. So I got it all done, and I go, great. Now let's go ahead and test this thing out. So we got into the instructions here, and it says place the rubber pad on the vacuum table so that the hole in the pad aligns with the fitting back here. And place the bell jar on the rubber pad, making sure that it's over that vacuum tube. Push the toggle switch on and activate the pump, and then turn the valve to investment position and check the pressure gauge, and within less than 1 minute it should reach 29. So that's what's in the instructions here. So I was down here, and I turned it, and I'm watching this thing, and it got up to minus 25 Hg, and the dome, the chi dome, imploded. And here's a picture of it there with all the pieces and everything else all around. I'm still picking up some debris here and there around the front of the shop here. But it all went in and then bounced on the rubber and then came down like a shower. And I was right here, and it's a good thing I went to the bathroom already. But it wasn't a boom. It was like a reverse shockwave sound almost. So anyway, I did my research, and I bought a dome here in America. And of course, this dome, to get it here, was $186. And the chi dome ain't worth nothing. So anyway, I didn't want to do this again until I actually had you sharing this experience with me. And so here we go. We're going to go ahead and go for a test here. And we hit the pressure on, and then we're supposed to switch it over to investment on the table. And it's increasing. There's minus 20, 22, minus 25. This is where it imploded the other chi dome. Okay, and it's holding. It's moving right on up. It's at 29 right now. And you're supposed to be able to shake the table. Because you got that investment that's going to be inside there, and you're going to be wanting to shake it down and shake the air bubbles and everything else off of it. Okay, and then release. Alright. And the pressure drops down. And then you take the dome off. Alright. We're good. Now, I feel secure with my setup now. I did want to share something. The perfect vacuum is 100% vacuum is zero reference pressure in practice. A perfect vacuum is impossible to obtain. And I got a chart here with some other, because I was actually, I wanted to know about that. And there's no literature in there that actually, in fact, even the manufacturer of this does not say its vacuum ratings, because that's what I wanted to know. Okay? Chi-Dome has no ratings, okay? And also, too, back here to the perfect vacuum. I created the perfect vacuum to make the Chi-Dome fail. And it wasn't up to par. It wasn't even up to the pressure or the vacuum amount that their own system was designed for. Does that make sense? Huh? When I send a product out my door, some places don't care what they send you. Okay? I think, America, we started Let's Make a Deal, okay? Bob Barker, remember, huh? And I think Chi taking it one step farther. Crap. Okay, I'm getting ready to mount the head on Buffy here. We have a couple things that we've already put in here. We wanted that bushing in there, and we test fit the spindle sleeve itself. We have this cluster in here, and we have this cluster in here. We didn't break apart those clusters, but we did put them in there because the gear, bevel gear inside here, has got to meet with the bevel gear coming down from here. And there's a sleeve right there and a sleeve up here, and of course that sleeve there. We want to make sure all of those were in location and locked down before we put this in. Besides that, that bushing back there had to have a set screw back here. Now that gear's all assembled with that shaft and all greased, and we have grease up there, oil on the face, and the studs there. Alright, I'm going to lift that up there and put it in place. Here we go. We've got the basic head with only a few items mounted on to Buffy here now. We slid this on, and the gear and everything. We moved this so we know it rotates fine, and we semi-cinched it down right here just so that we can be playing with it and start assembling. We're going to put the outer sleeve for the spindle in. We're going to put the shaft in place, and we're going to lock in the keeper here. We're going to be changing this out to put the one that's made for the travel dial that we're going to take off of Debbie and we're going to put on Buffy here. So we'll be cleaning that up, and we'll be changing that over when this is just about ready to run. But for right now, we're going to go ahead and put this in here, and this will keep the Quill sleeve or the Quill in line. We'll call this the Quill, and the other will be the spindle shaft. Alright, here we go. Now you can see through there. I can block the light on the side. See, it's open all the way through. So this gear shaft goes all the way through. The gear meshes with the Quill, and then over here on this side, the gear or the shaft engages with an auto feed spring pack. All right, and the handle goes in on this side. Eventually there will be one piece that slides on here and has the gear and the keyway on here. Actually, it slides on this other way here, and there we go. Okay, held on with the screw. All right, we want oil on the shaft, but we want grease on the gear, and that's what we're gonna do. Okay, and we're smearing a little bit on the gear rack on the Quill too. There's a gear rack on one side of on the back side of the Quill. Grease lubricates gears, spur gears, really well, and that's what we want to put on here. It's not like it's in an oil bath. Okay. Put the cap on the grease. All right, now we're going to put some oil on the shaft here. Now you're asking what kind of oil am I using? This is number 2 whey oil. It's what I have in my can. It's kind of nice oil. All right, so that's ready to slide in that way. I'm going to put a little oil on this side here, just because we have a few things that will be going on this side here as well. And if not, it'll protect that shaft from rusting. All right, so that's ready to go in this way. Now the Quill gets a spring sleeve that goes over. We're going to drop that in from the top, and it has 2 keepers that go in on the top of here, and the 2 tangs slide on here. We're not going to worry about that until this is up in place. Here's the port or the register that front guide goes into, and there's the gear on the back. All right, little oil dabbed in just on the surface around here. I've already got some on there. Okay, now this will go up in here. We cleaned this out. In fact, actually the last thing we did was we run the 3/4 reamer through, because we have the tensioner or brake okay, and I'm going to put the keeper in here now. We're going to get our flashlight so I can see if we have any gear sticking into this area here, and we do. So we can stick this in here. There we go. And I'm going to put our drive on there, and of course the handle just slips on here right now. All right, and we're going to put this in the front. Put our Allen in here. Okay, that'll hold the alignment of the Quill. That's all the way down. That's all the way up. Okay, we can hear the gear, grease and everything else in there. Nice. I really like this. You saw how snug that was going up in there, and I made sure that we had a little tiny bit of paint that was in on this front edge here, but we cleaned that off on the inside there. And it is nice to know that your quill is tight to the head. Alright, now that we have that, we can go ahead and drop in our sleeve and put our 2 screws in the top of there. Alright, the quill stop or break normally goes in this direction right here. But through some of the other video creators out there, I've learned, and we're going to change this around. The reason why we change this around is normally this is here, just the weight of this wants to fall down and put the tension on. And if we take and we change this around, and of course we want to add some oil on this. Everything from here on out will get coated up really good with oil. Never have enough oil on your machines. All right. Now I don't know where it's at, but sometimes, there it is there. Okay, there's on, and then off would be hanging down there, and on. All right, I think I'm gonna like that. I haven't tightened this up here. We'll put that in with a little bit of Loctite later on, but hanging down and then tensioning, nice. And it's also out of your way. It's kind of nice and clean, clear up here. We're going to give it a shot. Good idea. I'm going to give it a shot. Alright, we came in from the top and we installed that sleeve. And I'm going to show you here with the screwdriver. Okay, that's a retainer screw, and this one is over here. They're retaining the tang from that sleeve coming all the way out. But that sleeve is actually stuck to the sidewall until those keeper bolts grab it and then draw it down. It is doing the same purpose as those sliding sleeves or shields on your ways in and out, so that the chips don't go down inside the knee. Alright, so the sleeve stays there till it gets down to a certain point, and then it draws down into the hole, or the bore of the quill, or, follows the quill down into the bore. Alright, now out here on the outside, you can the sleeve coming down, there it is right there, for that amount of travel, and then it stays there until the guide picks it back up. There's the sleeve. The quill goes up and then pushes it back. So it's a circular slide shield. We played around with a few things and we decided to change out our travel dial assembly over there onto here, because we needed to drill and tap these two mounting holes which hold the frame on, make sure that everything was fine and kosher, so that the rest of our assembly here would come up through here and fit and operate. Now we can take the shaft and assemble it for its final time. We're going to leave the hook for the spring tension facing about 12 o'clock, or as close as possible to that. We're going to slide that in. And then we got two pieces that slide in here. And I need to put grease on here and just oil on the shaft, and we'll slide this in. We have a washer that'll go on here first. Okay, I'm going to put it with the flat side that way. Let's grab our grease. We already have this in that has a worm gear at the end of here, and we fit that piece and this vertical shaft right here for the 3 speeds on the feed, and that's what we're working as a transference of Quill rotation and the amount of forward motion or feed rate, and that's all done with these mechanisms here. This would be the shifter for the 3 speeds, and this is engagement forward and aft, or in and out, up and down, and this is where the junction makes the side. And then after this gear goes on in the snap ring, then the kick out mechanism will go on the outside of here. Okay, then we're just going to add just a tiny bit of grease onto the little cog face to this. Okay, I like that. Now we just want oil back here on that shaft and where that washer is going to go. We're going to put the flat side back because the taper goes in between these screws right here. Alright, and we're going to slide that on there. We're holding the shaft on the other side. That goes all the way in. And I should be able to see the snap ring groove right there. And I'm going to get my flashlight. Okay, I see the snap ring groove. And this is the ring I believe I took out of there. And kind of sits down in there. Don't lose that ring. Okay, now that shaft is locked in place, and on this side here we get the spring engagement clutch, and on the other side there we get the spring collar for the quill tensioning. Alright, the next thing I want to put in here, of course I'm going to squirt some oil in here, and just a little bit in here on the spring. Okay, now there's a wrap that comes in here, and the way it does, that comes in close so that it can catch on the hook that's in here. All right, and you tension this in a clockwise direction, and the instructions say 1 to 1.5 turns. And do is look in here with my flashlight and find out where that slot is right there. And sometimes you have to manipulate that a little bit with a screwdriver. Okay, I'm holding it down now. Okay, I've got it caught there now. Okay. No. Okay, once we get it to go down on there, we got to make sure that that tang goes down underneath there. So I got to push it not only down, but I got to push that in as well. Okay, now we can put a screw in the bottom here. Now this spring is not to make it come back, it's to take and counterbalance the weight of the spindle when it's in use. I'm going to look in there now and see how it's joined and make sure that yeah, I think that's got it. Okay, for right now, I think we're just, this is the hole that lined up to here, then we moved it to the first hole, put that screw in. So this is the tool, so it lets you take and use this as a handle, and then you can bring this out or in. And let me see if there's, put a little blue on that spot right there so that we know. So they said a turn to turn and a half is the proper setting. Okay. That was the one with the purple. So down here would be one turn. That would be one full turn right there. Okay. We'll snug these up a little bit. Okay, now here's our cog. There we go. And we're going to go ahead, we're going to put this screw in there. Hang on, let me find that screw. Okay, I think that's the screw right there. Yeah. Okay. Okay, nice. It goes all the way down. Excellent. Okay. Of course, we're going to probably run our wheel, and we have a wheel that we want to make on our Super X carve. And that'll be coming up in the future. But for right now, we're going to put the handle on here. Nice. Alright, it has a little bit of pullback on it, but we know when we get the spindle in there, it's going to add that much more weight. And as long as it doesn't move, it's doing its job. This next cluster comes in on the top, and this is where the feed rate for the automatic feed on the Quill comes into play. So this gear cluster here mixes in with this gear cluster inside this port here, but this has got to come in through the top of the head here before anything else goes in there. Now, we didn't take apart anything in here. It was nice and clean. We just kind of gave it an oil bath and then douched it up with some oil, and we're going to squirt a little bit more on here, and then we're just going to coat the gears up with some grease. And these are the oil ports here that will get lubricated by a drip system that will come into play down the road here. All right, and we have a sliding pin in here, and this here pin actually is the shifter that shifts this thing back and forth. Okay, so that's it in there. You can see that, and that'll come into play here shortly. Okay, this is just going to drop down through here. Now we're going to manipulate these gears so that we can get this past here. Okay, and it has to fit in. It has to fit in this little notch right here. That's why that little notch is notched out. There we go. Now that sits down in there. Now this is able to swing in here, and the adjustment for that, or the control of that, comes in through this little opening over here. All right, so these gears here now can travel back and forth, and these here will stay just there. And this is your center gear. This is the one that matches up with the upper one, and this is the one that matches up with the lower one. And that gives you your 3 different feed rates. All right, so we have a set screw, double set screw that's got to go in here. We're going to lock that into place. The first is a little tiny nub that will go in. All right, and that keeps, this swings back and forth. So it's just got to be backed off a little bit so the thing can't move up and down. And then it has a little lock ring here. There we go. That'll keep that locked up. All right, now we're ready to do our lubrication in here. We're going to put a bunch of grease in there on those gears. All right, we like that. We're just rotating around, making sure that we get every one of them coated just as much as we do the other ones there. And it looks like we're pretty well set now. Okay, looks greasy all over. All right, we like that. Okay, this is ready for the cover now. Okay, this little shifter rides that very center gear right there. This is cut out for clearance on the top gear because the top gear is bigger than the bottom gear. Okay, but it still holds that gear and shifts that gear that way. All right, we already lubricated this all up in here, and just for general purposes there, we're going to put just a little grease in the center. We oiled all the rest of it. All right, feels like it's in the center there. Put the 4 screws in here. Now we haven't tightened this up here, so that's why that moved a little bit there. Just in case we wanted to roll it over, we didn't. Okay, before we tighten that up, we're just going to make sure that it shifts. Yep. Excellent. This one always shifts easier when the machine is rolling over. The engage and disengage is the one that you have to only move when it's stopped, and you can manually engage it. But this one here, you definitely want to roll this over when the machine is rolling over. That's it. That way you get those gears to mesh. All right. It's very slow in this gearbox, by the way. Okay, now we're ready to put this cover on. Alright, before this cover goes on here, we have a few components inside. Now this gear goes, that keyway goes on the keyway of the shaft, and this cog lines up with that cog, which we did put some grease on there. We're going to grease this one here as well. Okay, and the key will line up and that'll go in. But before this goes in here, this arm is under pressure by a spring load right here. And that spring is that plunger, and that spring goes in behind there. Alright, so we're going to go ahead, we're going to squirt some oil in here. And we're going to squirt oil all over this. Alright, and we're going to put that in the hole there. Okay, and that will give that spring pressure right there. Now we line that key up there. Okay, this is a pivot here, and that pivot lines up with those two grooves in the cap there. We're going to go ahead and dab some grease on that and in here, so that pivot point will always be lubricated there. Now we're going to go ahead and see if we can get that cap in there like that, and we're holding it under tension. We'll put in the top screw right here. That's not the wrench. Okay, we're going to leave that one loose. Let's get the other one. Nice. Okay, under spring load, that's what that arm's supposed to be doing, is that arm goes into the next piece we're going to be adding on the front here. Alright, let's wipe our grease and everything else off of our Buffy areas here. Okay, here's our little lever that's going to go in here and let it engage or disengage for the Quill feed rate. Alright, so this little square right here rides in the center of that block right there to help guide it, and this finger shifts back and forth and will move it into gauge and out to disengage. Okay, so let's go ahead, and we're gonna have to see if we can somewhat get that pin and this slide in position right here. Okay, I missed the pin. Okay, the pin fell down. Okay, I'm engaged with the pin now. Okay, now we're in line. Okay, there we go. There we go. Alright, now I just got to get the 3 Allen screws that are going to hold this in and bolt that down. This is pretty cool. Childs gets to use their brand new paver. I guess that's what you call this unit right here. So they've had it for a little while, but this job here will be the first one in use. Pretty cool. Alright, the guys said that they would be done by noon. They got barriers out there, and they got the machines parked at the other end. So it's got a cool down period to go through. Pretty awesome.